The entire banquet hall fell silent as Ronnie snatched a bottle of champagne, uncorked it with a loud pop, and poured it over his wife's head. Golden liquid streamed down Victoria's hair, face, and elegant white gown while stunned guests watched in disbelief. Before she could wipe her eyes, he slapped a thick envelope into her trembling hands. "Happy 30th birthday," he sneered. "Those are your divorce papers." The room erupted with cruel laughter. Ronnie's father clapped sarcastically while his mother smirked and raised her champagne glass. "A woman like you never deserved our son," she mocked. "Sign the papers and leave before you embarrass yourself even more." Victoria looked around the lavish banquet hall. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above hundreds of distinguished guests. A magnificent three-tier birthday cake stood untouched in the center of the room, its candles still burning beside elegant floral arrangements. Friends, executives, investors, and business associates whispered among themselves, some recording the humiliating scene on their phones. Her heart ached, but her face remained calm. 3 years of marriage had taught her one painful lesson: never let people who wish to destroy you enjoy seeing you break. Ronnie folded his arms with a smug grin. "What's the matter? I thought you'd cry louder than this." His mother laughed. "She's probably wondering where she'll sleep tonight." His father added, "Without our family, she's absolutely nothing." A younger woman, in a dazzling red evening gown, stepped forward and slipped her arm around Ronnie's. "Chloe." She smiled sweetly before whispering loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Darling, can we cut the cake now? I don't want your ex-wife ruining the party." The guests burst into another round of laughter. Victoria slowly lowered her eyes to the divorce papers. Ronnie had prepared everything carefully. Every financial account had already been separated. Their house had been transferred into his name. The luxury vehicles were no longer jointly owned. Even the jewelry he'd bought during their marriage had been listed as his property. He expected her to fight. He expected her to beg. Instead, she quietly picked up a pen from the dessert table. Ronnie frowned. "That's it." She looked directly into his eyes. "If this is truly what you want." She signed every page. The silence that followed was almost unsettling. Ronnie blinked. You're not going to argue." "No. No alimony. No. No begging. No." Chloe laughed loudly. "See, she knows she's lost." Ronnie snatched the signed documents from her hands. "I thought you'd make this difficult." Victoria gave a faint smile. Sometimes the easiest decision is walking away from people who stopped valuing you long ago. His mother rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, listen to her acting wise." Ronnie stepped closer. "You have 1 hour to clear your things from my house." "I won't need that long." He stared at her. "Where will you go?" She simply replied, "Home." The answer amused everyone. Chloe covered her mouth as she laughed. "What home? The tiny apartment you lived in before Ronnie rescued you." Victoria didn't answer. Instead, she walked toward the birthday cake. Guests watched curiously. For a brief moment, many thought she might smash it in anger. Instead, she gently removed the number 30 candle from the cake. She looked at it quietly. 30 years old. Her grandfather had always told her that her 30th birthday would change her life forever. At the time, she never understood what he meant. Now she did. She placed the candle neatly on the table. "I hope you all enjoy the party." Ronnie scoffed. "Leaving already?" She nodded. "My work here is finished." As she reached the ballroom entrance, an elderly waiter hurried after her. "Madam's your handbag." She smiled warmly. "Thank you." Unlike everyone else in the room, The old man had treated her with kindness throughout the evening. She accepted the bag and quietly walked outside. The moment the ballroom doors closed behind her, her smile disappeared. She stood alone beneath the bright lights of the hotel's grand entrance. Champagne dripped from her hair onto the marble floor. For several long seconds, she simply breathed. Then her phone rang. The caller ID displayed only one word: "Grandfather's office." She answered immediately. "Miss Victoria." The familiar voice belonged to Mr. Harrison Cole, her late grandfather's lifelong attorney. "It's done." She closed her eyes. "Did today's board vote pass?" "Unanimously." "And the investors?" "They've all confirmed attendance for tomorrow morning's emergency global investors meeting." Mr. Harrison Cole paused. "There's one more thing." "What is it?" "Your grandfather's final instructions become active at exactly 9 o'clock tomorrow morning." Victoria looked back toward the brightly lit banquet hall, where laughter still echoed through the windows. Ronnie had no idea. Neither did his parents, nor the investors celebrating inside. By tomorrow morning, every single company they believed they owned would officially belong to the woman they had just humiliated. She calmly hailed a waiting black luxury sedan. The chauffeur stepped out immediately. "Good evening, Miss Victoria." He opened the rear door respectfully. She entered without another glance at the hotel. The car quietly disappeared into the night. Behind her, inside the ballroom, Ronnie lifted his champagne glass. "To new beginnings." The guests cheered. None of them realized they had just toasted the beginning of their own destruction. Victoria sat silently in the back seat of the black luxury sedan as it glided through the city streets. She stared out the window while droplets of champagne slowly dried on her hair and gown. The humiliation replayed in her mind over and over, but not once did she allow herself to cry. The chauffeur glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "Would you like me to stop anywhere, Miss Victoria?" She shook her head. "No, take me to Grandview Estate." "Yes, ma'am." 30 minutes later, the iron gates of one of the city's most exclusive private estates slowly opened. Security officers standing at the entrance immediately saluted as the sedan rolled past manicured gardens and illuminated fountains. When the car stopped in front of the mansion, dozens of household staff were already waiting. The butler hurried forward. "Welcome home, Miss Victoria." The housekeeper gasped when she noticed Victoria's soaked gown. "My goodness, who did this to you?" Victoria offered a reassuring smile. "I'm perfectly fine." The staff knew better than to ask questions. Inside the mansion, she climbed the grand staircase to her suite, where a warm bath had already been prepared. She washed the sticky champagne from her hair, changed into a cream-colored silk suit, and stood before the large portrait hanging above the fireplace. It was a painting of her late grandfather. She smiled sadly. "You were right, Grandpa." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "You always said people reveal their true character when they believe they have all the power." A gentle knock came at the door. "Come in." Mr. Harrison Cole entered, carrying several leather folders. "Everything is ready." Victoria motioned for him to sit. "Tell me." He opened the first folder. The transfer of voting rights became legally effective at midnight. The investment group. Every shareholder has signed. The subsidiaries. They're all under your direct authority. Mr. Harrison Cole hesitated before placing another document on the table. "This one concerns Ronnie." Victoria lowered her eyes. "What about him?" His company is surviving almost entirely because of financing from Reeves Global Holdings. She nodded quietly. I know. He doesn't. A faint smile crossed her face. He never bothered to read who owned the investment fund. Mr. Harrison Cole adjusted his glasses. Tomorrow's investors' meeting was originally scheduled to finalize an expansion loan. Victoria looked directly at him. And tomorrow it becomes a complete change of ownership. Exactly. Silence settled over the room. Mr. Harrison Cole finally asked the question that had been weighing on him. Do you intend to seek revenge? Victoria walked toward the window overlooking the city skyline. No. He looked surprised. I intend to let consequences speak for themselves. Meanwhile, back at the hotel, the birthday celebration had transformed into an engagement party. Music echoed through the ballroom as Ronnie danced with Chloe while guests applauded. His father raised another glass. Finally, our family has gotten rid of dead weight. Laughter erupted again. One of Ronnie's business partners approached him. Congratulations on the divorce. Ronnie grinned. It should have happened a long time ago. What about tomorrow's investors' meeting? Ronnie waved dismissively. It's merely a formality. His father laughed confidently. Once the funding is approved, we'll dominate the market. Chloe wrapped her arms around Ronnie. And after that, he smiled proudly. We'll announce our engagement publicly. Across the room, several senior executives exchanged uncertain glances. One of them quietly leaned toward another. Did anyone else think Victoria seemed unusually calm? The second executive nodded. I expected tears. So did I. Instead, she thanked everyone, signed the papers, and left. Something about it unsettled them. Ronnie noticed the conversation. What are you whispering about? One executive forced a smile. Nothing important. Ronnie laughed. Trust me, Victoria has nothing left. The executive nodded politely, but deep inside, an uneasy feeling lingered. The next morning, sunlight poured through the windows of Grandview Estate. Victoria stood on the balcony, holding a cup of coffee. She watched the city awaken beneath her. Today would be unlike any other day. Her assistant entered, carrying a garment bag. Your outfit for the meeting, Miss Victoria. Victoria unzipped the bag. Inside hung a beautifully tailored white executive pantsuit paired with elegant heels. Simple, sophisticated, powerful. Exactly the image her grandfather had always admired. Her assistant smiled. The board requested that you sit in the chairman's seat today. Victoria nodded. They'll have their chairwoman at another part of the city. Ronnie adjusted his expensive navy blue suit before standing in front of his bedroom mirror. His mother smiled proudly. Today's the day. His father straightened Ronnie's tie. After this meeting, everyone will know you're one of the country's top business leaders. Chloe kissed him on the cheek. I can't wait. Ronnie smirked confidently. Neither can I. Outside, a convoy of luxury vehicles departed for Orion International Conference Center, where hundreds of investors from around the world had already begun arriving. Inside the magnificent conference hall, journalists prepared their cameras while executives greeted one another with firm handshakes. Everyone anticipated a routine meeting that would approve billions of dollars in investments. No one expected the agenda to change. No one expected a new chairperson. And certainly, no one expected the woman Ronnie had publicly humiliated less than 24 hours earlier to walk through those doors. As Ronnie entered the conference center with his parents and Chloe, they laughed together, completely unaware that every confident step they took was bringing them closer to the moment that would destroy everything they believed they owned. The grand ballroom of the Orion International Conference Center buzzed with conversation as executives, investors, bankers, and journalists from around the world filled their seats. Massive LED screens displayed the words, "Heiress Global Holdings, Annual Strategic Investors Summit." Ronnie adjusted his tailored navy blue suit and smiled confidently as he walked beside his parents and Chloe. "This is our moment," his father whispered proudly. "It certainly is," Ronnie replied. "By the end of today, our expansion funding will be secured." His mother admired the luxurious surroundings. "I told everyone our family was destined for greatness." Chloe slipped her hand into Ronnie's. "And tonight we'll celebrate." The family laughed together as they took their reserved seats near the front of the conference hall. Around them, representatives from multinational corporations greeted one another with firm handshakes. Television cameras rolled. Financial reporters prepared their notes. Everything appeared perfectly normal. A senior executive stepped onto the stage. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen." The conversations gradually faded. "Welcome to the annual Strategic Investors Summit." Polite applause echoed through the hall. "As many of you know, today's agenda has undergone one important adjustment." Ronnie barely looked up from his phone. He wasn't concerned. After all, this meeting existed primarily to approve financing for companies like his. The executive continued. "Before we discuss this year's investment portfolio, our board of directors will officially introduce the new executive chair of Reeves Global Holdings." Murmurs spread throughout the audience. Ronnie's father frowned. "I thought the chairman retired months ago." "He did," Ronnie answered casually. "They probably hired someone from overseas." Meanwhile, outside the conference center, a sleek black motorcade quietly entered through the private executive entrance. Security personnel immediately stood at attention. The moment the lead sedan stopped, senior board members walked forward personally. The chauffeur opened the rear door. Victoria stepped out, wearing a perfectly tailored white executive pantsuit. Her hair was neatly styled. Every trace of the previous night's humiliation had disappeared. Instead stood a woman whose quiet confidence commanded attention without saying a word. "Good morning, Madam Chair." One by one, every board member greeted her respectfully. "Good morning. The investors are waiting. The legal team has finalized every document." Mr. Harrison Cole approached with a leather portfolio. "Everything is in place." Victoria accepted the folder. "Let's begin." As she entered the building, employees lining the hallway respectfully greeted her. "Good morning, Madam Chair." She smiled politely at each of them. Inside the conference hall, the senior executive returned to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to introduce the majority shareholder of Reeves Global Holdings, our newly appointed executive chair." He paused. "Miss Victoria Reeves." The massive doors at the back of the hall slowly opened. Every head turned. Silence swept across the room. Ronnie's confident smile disappeared instantly. His mother froze. His father's eyes widened. Chloe stared in disbelief. "Victoria." She walked calmly down the center aisle. Not hurried, not nervous, simply composed. Board members followed respectfully behind her. Financial reporters immediately lifted their cameras. Flash after flash illuminated the room. Whispers erupted everywhere. "That's her. I saw her photograph in last month's financial journals. So she's the heiress. I had no idea." Ronnie slowly rose from his seat. "No." His voice barely escaped. "No, that's impossible." Victoria never looked in his direction. She continued walking until she reached the stage. Every director stood. Then every executive. Soon the entire hall rose to its feet. A standing ovation filled the room. Ronnie remained standing in stunned silence. The same woman he had drenched in champagne less than 24 hours earlier was now receiving the highest honor in the room. Victoria stepped behind the chairman's podium. The applause finally subsided. She smiled warmly. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen." Her calm voice echoed throughout the conference hall. "Thank you for joining us." She paused briefly. "My grandfather believed that business is built on 3 principles: integrity, respect, and responsibility. If even one of those principles disappears, everything else eventually follows." Ronnie lowered his eyes. A knot formed in his stomach. Something was terribly wrong. Victoria opened the leather folder before her. "Our first item of business concerns the Strategic Investment Review." Several large screens behind her immediately displayed charts and financial data. One company name appeared in bold letters: Ronnie Carter, ENTOPORCS. Ronnie's heartbeat quickened. His father whispered urgently, "Why is our company first?" Victoria looked toward the audience. "As executive chair, I requested an independent review of every company seeking continued financing through Reeves Global Holdings." The chief financial officer stepped forward. "Our review committee completed its assessment late last night." He clicked a remote. Another slide appeared. The committee identified serious concerns regarding governance, executive judgment, and reputational risk. The room became noticeably quieter. Victoria spoke again. "Investment is more than numbers. It is also a matter of trust." She looked across the audience without anger or bitterness. "Shareholders entrust us with their capital. We owe them responsible leadership." The chief financial officer continued. "Based on the committee's recommendation, the board has unanimously voted to suspend negotiations regarding the proposed expansion financing for Ronnie Carter Enterprises pending further review." A wave of murmurs spread through the audience. Ronnie shot to his feet. "What?" His voice echoed across the hall. "There must be some mistake." The CFO calmly replied, "There is no mistake." Ronnie looked desperately toward the board members. "You can't do this." Victoria remained composed. The committee's decision followed established corporate policy. It was not personal. Ronnie stared at her in disbelief. "You expect me to believe that?" Victoria finally met his eyes for the first time that morning. Her expression held neither hatred nor satisfaction. Only disappointment. "You taught me something yesterday, Ronnie." He swallowed hard. She continued quietly. "Leadership isn't measured by how you treat powerful people. It's revealed by how you treat those you believe can do nothing for you." The conference hall fell completely silent. For the first time since the meeting began, no one applauded Ronnie. No one defended him. And for the first time in his life, he realized that the consequences of one reckless night had only just begun. The conference hall remained silent long after Victoria's words settled over the audience. Ronnie stood frozen beside his chair, every confident speech he had rehearsed disappearing from his mind. His father rose abruptly. "This is outrageous," he shouted. "You're punishing my son because of a private disagreement." Before anyone could respond, the company's lead legal advisor calmly stepped forward. "Sir, this decision was not based on any private matter." He projected another document onto the giant screen. The review committee completed its investigation before this meeting began. It identified serious concerns involving executive conduct, governance standards, and the potential reputational risks to shareholders. Another slide appeared. Several international investment partners had already issued notices stating they would suspend negotiations until the concerns were resolved. One after another, representatives quietly closed their folders. Some shook their heads. Others stood and walked toward the exit. Ronnie watched in disbelief. "No, don't leave." One investor turned back. "We invest in leadership as much as we invest in numbers." Another added quietly, "Yesterday's public humiliation of your wife has already become the subject of widespread discussion among our partners. It raised serious questions about your judgment." Within minutes, the atmosphere Ronnie had expected to celebrate had completely changed. His company's chief financial officer approached with a pale expression. "Sir." Ronnie grabbed his arm. "What now?" "The banks have called." "So?" "They're requesting an immediate meeting regarding our outstanding credit facilities." His father's face turned white. "They can't do that." "They can," the CFO replied. "Those agreements contain clauses allowing them to reassess financing when significant governance concerns arise." Another executive hurried over, carrying his phone. "Our share price is falling rapidly." Ronnie stared at the screen. Every update was worse than the last. His mother slowly lowered herself into her chair. This can't be happening." Across the room, Victoria remained composed. She did not celebrate. She did not smile. She simply watched the board continue with the meeting. By the afternoon, the board of Ronnie's company convened an emergency session. After hours of discussion, the directors reached their decision. Ronnie was removed as chief executive officer pending further review. His father lost his position as chairman. Several senior officers resigned. News outlets quickly reported the developments. Within days, lenders demanded repayment under existing agreements, key partners terminated contracts, and the family was forced to sell valuable assets to satisfy mounting obligations. The luxurious mansion was listed for sale. The fleet of expensive cars disappeared. The lavish lifestyle they had flaunted vanished almost overnight. Weeks later, Ronnie stood outside Reeves Global Holdings headquarters, wearing the same suit he had worn to the investors' meeting. Only now it was wrinkled and worn. His parents stood beside him in silence. Gone were the arrogant smiles. Gone was the pride. When Victoria stepped out of the building after a board meeting, Ronnie slowly walked toward her. He lowered his head. "I'm sorry." She looked at him quietly. "I know those words can't erase what I did." His mother wiped tears from her eyes. "We treated you terribly. We judged you without ever knowing who you truly were." His father spoke next. "We've lost almost everything." Victoria remained silent for a long moment. Finally, she said softly, "My grandfather taught me that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not a reward you give someone else." Ronnie looked up hopefully. She continued, "I forgive you." Relief washed across their faces. But forgiveness does not erase consequences. They nodded. They understood. Victoria extended her hand to Ronnie. He shook it with trembling fingers. "I truly hope," she said, "that if life gives you another opportunity to lead, you'll remember that respect costs nothing, but its absence can cost everything." Without another word, she walked toward her waiting car. Ronnie and his parents stood quietly watching her leave. For the first time in their lives, they understood that wealth could be rebuilt, businesses could recover, and reputations could heal. But the character a person shows when they believe someone is powerless is remembered long after the money is gone. As Victoria's car disappeared into the evening traffic, she smiled gently. Her grandfather's final lesson had been fulfilled. True victory had never been about revenge. It had always been about dignity.